Hey, what is going on, guys? Danny here, hope you've all been doing well. As you all might know, Computex 2018 is underway, and a lot of your favorite companies in the semiconductor business like AMD, Intel, and Nvidia will be talking about upcoming products, technologies, and more. Now, Nvidia held a conference just a day before the event where they talked about a lot of new technologies they're working on, such as AI, deep learning, high performance computing for data centers, and some new consumer products like their 4K 144Hz G-Sync monitors, and also their big format gaming displays, which are essentially just monitors the size of TVs. Now, one thing a lot of people, including myself, have been very anxious to find out was when their next generation GeForce consumer graphics cards will be launched. Computex is usually a good time for these companies to make these huge announcements, but this time, when Jensen Huang, Nvidia's CEO, was asked multiple times about when we could possibly see their next line of graphics cards for the consumers, he said it's a long time from now. Now, I'm sure after that statement, there were quite a few people who were probably flipping some tables, because if you think about it, Pascal is now over 2 years old. The GTX 1080 and 1070 were announced on May 6th, 2016, with the GTX 1080 hitting the shelves shortly after on May 27th, 2016. So we're long overdue for a new GeForce architecture and series of graphics cards. When Jensen said that the cards are a long time ways from now, many people were saying this was bullshit, and it makes sense as to why they would think that. For starters, it doesn't make sense for the CEO to stop sales of Pascal graphics cards by saying that the next graphics cards are around the corner, because had he said that, then that is what most likely would have happened. People would completely ignore their current Pascal graphics cards and simply wait, as that would be the smarter thing to do. Paul Alcorn over at Tom's Hardware recently posted an article stating that Nvidia will be presenting their next generation mainstream GPUs at this year's Hot Chips conference in August. But present doesn't necessarily mean launching, so it could just be a presentation focused more on the next architecture unveiling, features, things like that, and we'll probably find out launch date with MSRP at a later date. On the other hand, there could be some truth to what he said for a few reasons. It's been reported that Nvidia's next generation of graphics cards will be using new GDDR6 memory. SK Hynix, in an interview with Gamers Nexus, back in April stated they would be ramping up production for the next 3 months. Then those chips would be distributed to various partners in the following months for their products, which does line up with the Hot Chips conference. But I feel like they would have to take more time to accumulate there. So if anything, we'll probably just see the Founder Edition cards, with AIB cards to follow a few months later. Another reason could be that they decide to just skip 12nm and go directly to 7nm, and if that's the case, then I wouldn't expect to see anything until late Q4 of 2018 or early Q1 of 2019. The other scenario we have to look at is the lack of competition right now in the market. Right now, Pascal is on top and is still selling well despite being over 2 years old. It just doesn't make sense for them to push out a new graphics card series when their current one is still doing just fine. The smarter decision would be to continue to milk their current lineup as much as possible. Now, some people might be wondering, but why would they not want to release a new product line to continue to grow their market and mindshare further? And the answer to that would be that they simply don't have to. Instead, what they can do is just focus on other markets. There is big money in other markets. Don't get me wrong, the PC gaming market is still huge and will continue to grow as well. But we have seen possible real-world scenarios for AIs and things like medical imagery. Self-drivable cars have been all the buzz over the last decade in the automotive industry, and we have seen various use cases for them in consumer vehicles, logistics, for commercial ride-sharing services. That's why they're so invested in focusing on these other markets, because there's so much more potential for growth there. But this puts gamers who might be in the market for a graphics card in a bad spot, because even though Pascal-based graphics cards are 2 years old, they're still selling at the same prices, if not considerably more than what they sold for when the cards initially launched. Now, pretty much everyone knows this by now at this point, that the reason for this was because we're coming off from a mining boom, and also the shortages and rise in memory prices prevented prices of these cards to go down. And so anyone who's in the market for a graphics card, whether it's for a new build or an upgrade, they're going to be thinking, yikes, $500 for a GTX 1070 or $600 for a GTX 1080, it's just too much considering their age. And they're absolutely right. Anyone buying these cards now is simply overpaying for these mid-range graphics cards. And yes, I do mean mid-range because they're already using the GP104 GPU, but at this point, when new graphics cards do launch, they will definitely be considered mid-range. So it begs the question on what should you do. There are frustrated consumers in the market, I'll bet, that are probably thinking that it would be nice to have a GTX 1080, but what if Nvidia releases new cards within the next 6 or 7 months? Then I'll look like a total idiot buying an older graphics card for more money when I could have attained the same level of performance for much cheaper, or if I had spent the same amount of money on a newer generation video card, I would have ended up with a graphics card that's a lot faster than a 1080 for the same price. If you're currently in this situation and you're watching this video, what I recommend you do is try to find a deal on a lower end graphics card like an RX 560 or GTX 1050 or 1050 Ti, lower settings, and play your games that way. Or what you could try to do is find a deal on something decent like a GTX 970 or R9 390 in the used market and wait patiently with that. But I tend not to recommend the used market as much just because it's a 100% your mileage may vary type of situation. So it's not really applicable to everybody. Now, a lot of people last year got pissed off at me and I got a lot of flack for it when I said I was disappointed with AMD's RX Vega GPUs. I thought they weren't really bringing any sort of threatening competition to Nvidia. I was disappointed by this because I knew that Nvidia wouldn't have any incentive to respond back with an innovative new generation of graphics card. Granted, they did release a 1070 Ti, so they would have something around the price of a Vega 56 that's faster, but I mean, all they did was release a new variant of the GP104 GPU, so no big deal there. But if the RX Vega graphics card were much faster and they were competitive, then I think Nvidia would have been talking a lot more right now. I'm a fan of competition, and unfortunately when one side cannot compete, it causes the market to become stagnant, and those are the negative implications we're seeing today. Well, that wraps up this one. Let me know your thoughts down below. Check out the links in the video description for my other videos and ways to support the channel. And if you're interested in more content like this, then make sure you're subscribed. Thank you guys so much for watching, take care, and I'll see you in the next one.